I got so frustrated one time, I don't think it was last semester, it was either the semester before, spring of last year, that I actually gave a quiz on the directions for an assignment. It wasn't really graded, but it was really sort of trying to make a point. The number of times that young people will ask you how to do something after you've written it down, and they've chosen not to read it. Paul the Apostle talks about the difference in his love chapter 13 of 1 Corinthians, of those attitudes and those perspectives that we had when we were children over against our state of mind, a state of heart, when we mature into adulthood. And I'd suggest to you that Micah's teaching to us today in chapter 6 is one about maturity as God's people. That kindness, that justice, that humility are things that we've got head knowledge of. And man, it's something else to try to do it. So I'd like us to consider what that might mean for us this day, some thoughts. The first one, of course, is what to do. And I just said it. It's interesting how we can avoid that. Robin and I watch a series on Netflix called The Travelers. And it's one of those ones where I'll only say a little bit. People come from the future to the present in order to save the future, in a sense. To change things so that the outcomes that seem to be destined to happen in the future won't occur. It's sort of a reverse transmigration of the soul. And you might know that's the term for reincarnation in some traditions, where you take on a new body or a being, and your soul gets sort of recycled into that. But it's sort of linear, chronological from the past and the future. This is the opposite. And what's interesting is it seems to me that it sort of contradicts what we're to be about, and that is stewardship in the now. Don't worry about the past, don't worry about the future in the sense of your responsibility. Your responsibility is now. We're called to our actions now that have an impact. I think something closer to that Christian teaching is the Native American wisdom that we don't inherit the world from the past, from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. We know that we've got a relationship, but we think about our action now. It's tough, that stuff of seeking to be fully present in the now. And certain things will get us thinking about what it might mean. This past year, the astronaut Edgar Mitchell had died. And it's an interesting thing that he went into space. He was the 6th person to walk on the moon in February of 1971. And in the midst of that, as you can imagine, boy, did he have an epiphany. And it was something like this. He expresses it like this. I realized the molecules of my body and the molecules of the spacecraft have been manufactured in an ancient generation of stars. Now, I've got to think about that a lot. After he returned to planet Earth, he left NASA, and he found an institute that he called the Institute of Noetic Sciences, which advocated exploring the universe by a means of inquiry that lay outside of science and religion. So he hung out with South American shamans, Haitian voodoo priests, the psychic Uri Geller. He even wrote a recent message, and this came up in the presidential campaign with WikiLeaks, to John Podesta, asking him to discuss the possibility of disclosing the federal government's records of alien contact. Here's a guy who's searching. Some experience in life, where one experience, profound experience of space travel and going to the moon, really stirred up his questions of what does this all mean? What am I to be doing in this life? Micah is a pretty amazing book, and it is a pretty strong message that we get here if we look at the whole context. The first thing that we get out of Micah is a sense of God's companionship with the people of both Judah and Israel. It seems to be before the northern kingdom has been taken over by Assyria, and then the southern kingdom about 100 to 25 years later, falling to the Babylonians. And God says through Micah, have you forgotten? Essentially. These words, oh my people, what have I done to you? And in what have I wearied you? Answer me. Come on, tell me, what's the deal here? And then he lays out to them, we've had this relationship. I liberated you from Egypt. I used Moses, I used Aaron and Miriam to get you out of there. And along the path, I had to go negotiate a whole bunch of different things in order to get you to this land that I promised you. And one of those is alluded to. You'll remember that obscure reference to Balak and Balaam in the reading that Mary offered us today. And it's basically referring to a story in which Balaam, this sort of seer, prophet, mysterious guy, is asked by Balak of Moab to curse Israel because he could tell that Israel was strong. And Balaam's a bit hesitant about that. And what's interesting is at one point along the road, you might remember this really strange tale, Balaam is riding his donkey, a very loyal donkey, a donkey that did everything that he wanted it to do as he was traveling along. And as he's moving along, trying to figure out what to do with the situation with Balak, to go give him whatever counsel he's supposed to give him, the donkey is confronted by an angel that only the donkey can see. And seeing the angel in the road, he walks right into the field to avoid that strange angel with the sword. And what does Balaam do? He whips him. He gets back on the trail and they go to some pass between two vineyards. It was very narrow. And the angel was on one side of that path, so the donkey edged against the other side and rubbed against the wall. And of course, Balaam's leg is rubbed against the wall as well, and he swats him again. He finally goes along a little bit more, and the angel's right in the middle of the road. There's nowhere to go. And that donkey slides right down onto the ground, and Balaam a third time hits him, and the donkey starts talking. This is the great part of the story. He basically says, we have a history here. You know I'm a loyal donkey. Why are you treating me like this? I've been seeing an angel here. You shouldn't be beating me. And it's about this point that God enters the scene and says to him, listen, I've come to you as an adversary because your way is perverse to me. And instead of cursing Israel, he went to offer 7 oracles of blessing, and Israel took the path that it was supposed to take. And Mike is basically saying, just as the donkey and Balaam have a history, God and Israel have a history. And that history is one of faithfulness, of God's salvation. So remember that, first of all. Second thing is, God's got a call to you. God is calling to you that you are to do certain things to create a society. And that's the do justice, love kindness, and walking humbly with our God thing. Out of love for you, I've called you to create a loving community. But God, having offered that call, says to them, I've got an indictment against you. Wickedness is in the house of Israel. You have an economy that cheats the vulnerable people. The wealthy are full of violence. Your inhabitants speak lies. There are tongues of deceit in their mouths. And rather than accepting the call, you've rejected it. More than that, you've tried to con me, to deceive me through your empty religious ritual. And so God's judgment is then offered. These are the verses all surrounding the passage that I spoke to you about. Or that Mary read for you, actually. And so the consequence of that God has had a history with these people. God has given them a call. They have failed to respond to that call. There is a judgment that comes down. Remember the mountains at the beginning of the passage Mary read. Mountains, hear what I have to say. It's essentially saying that in the midst of creation, when we're not faithful in our use thereof, there are implications in creation for that. It's like the consequences come back to us naturally because they're built into it. The judgment is playing out that they are going to be struck down, and desolation is going to be their reality. You see, the deal is this. It's a holy task to create community. A holy task. God called them, and God calls us to that. And we cannot take it lightly. Remember how Fred Rogers once put it. I believe that appreciation is a holy thing. That when we look for what's best in a person, in the person we happen to be with at the moment, we're doing what God does all the time for us. So in appreciating neighbors, we're participating in something truly sacred. Fred Rogers wrote. You see, Israel and Judah had surrendered that task. And it's a historical warning to those of us who come afterwards to think about what it means. So what to do? Well, it's there. It's laid out. We know up here what to do, but how to do it. What's this kindness, this justice, this humility thing supposed to look like? And I guess the first thing I'd say, well, let's follow the lights, the bright lights, the examples of our time and past times. And we get grounded in that by, of course, the words of the Son of God, Jesus, in terms of the blessedness statements and the Beatitudes. Now, if you look at the 6 out of the 9 of them, they're not particularly appealing. I mean, blessed are the poor in spirit, those who mourn, the meek, those hungering and thirsting for righteousness, those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, those who are reviled by people because of our faith in Christ. Those don't seem like particularly things that you'd call sources of joy. Blessed. And the 3 others say, blessed are the merciful, blessed are the pure in heart, and the peacemakers, and all of those are pushed back by powerful forces and reality. What is this blessedness stuff? Well, the deal is this. It seems to be that the word means joy, certainly not happiness. Happiness comes from the word hap, which means chance. You may or you may not experience happiness. But makarios, the Greek word for joy, is godlike joy that can't be affected by chance or change. It's an inner state that can't be defeated by externals. It's something that goes on with us that is sort of a perpetual affirmation of meaning and possibility and a sense of fulfillment. For me, if joy isn't the ultimate goal of what I'm doing or involved in, I'm not particularly interested. Or if I'm forced to be in it, I want to get through it as fast as possible. Perhaps you feel the same way. We're called to follow a path of joyful blessedness and be instruments of that joyful blessedness, I think is really the key thing. So that with that wonderful sort of contextualizing and foundation from Jesus, we can think through sort of some other examples of that. I was interested to read a little bit about William Penn. I'm born in Pennsylvania, lived a lot of years in Pennsylvania, never read anything about William Penn. And what's interesting is that he was granted that land by the King of England. And what was interesting beyond that is that when he arrived there, he didn't simply accept that, he actually bought the land over again from the Indians who were occupying it. For 70 years, the Quakers, of which he was a member, and the Indians lived in harmony. It's a record in the history of those relationships in the history of this continent. He was someone who, in terms of the system he established, was focused on justice. You had the right to vote, whether you owned property, whether you're a church member, whether you were free or not. You had the entitlement to vote. Freedom, you had to be a freeman. Absolute religious freedom was given. When it came to capital punishment, for example, there were 200 offenses in the English law that you could be put to death. You reduced that to murder and high treason. Imprisonment for expression of your opinion or for the fact that you were in debt was abolished. And no race discrimination was tolerated. If there was a case that involved a Native American would become the Native Americans, always the jury would be composed of half members of the Native American community. There was one example, a humorous example, that came up of a witchcraft case. And there was this threat of an old European superstition related to witches breaking out. He said, but when even the old woman confessed that she was a witch, Penn informed her he knew of no law, unless it was gravity, to prevent her from riding through the air on a broomstick, and so he blew away the case with a gust of laughter. He was someone who worked hard, and actually it was very great personal cost, to try to establish a place ruled by justice. Let's go closer to home, though. That's a society. Mother Teresa had this brief saying in which she offered these words: we must make our homes centers of compassion and forgive endlessly, and so bring peace. Make your home a center of burning love. Now, that's a pretty high standard, isn't it? Oh, wow. What an image. The Dalai Lama, his vision for Tibet was for there to be a valley, a significant valley that is there in Tibet, which would be called the Valley of Karuna. Karuna is the word in Buddhism meaning compassion. What would it mean for us to visualize and envision that type of a commitment of having even a region of the country devoted simply to that offering of healing compassion towards one another? So the first thing, of course, is thinking about those visionaries and what they call us to be about and what they embody for us. And the second thing is then have the courage to face the problems that we face now. We're going through this really interesting time in our country with our new president. And what's interesting is how do we deal with one another in community? And how do we deal with the world in community? I find it interesting that Abram was called to establish a nation. I mean, there needed to be this sort of organization that allowed the people that would settle in this new land to have order and meaning. But what was interesting is that the teaching in Genesis 12 is that you are to establish this nation so that it might be a blessing to other nations. That was the call. That was the commission. It's really interesting to realize how many places in the book of Deuteronomy, for example, when the law has been discovered, rediscovered again, how many places in Deuteronomy the care for the sojourners mentioned? Chapter 1, give the members of your community a fair hearing and judge rightly between one person and another, whether citizen or resident alien. The people of Israel are made aware in chapter 6 that the land had come to them as a gift from God and that they were to remember that they were once aliens. Chapter 10, for the Lord your God loves the strangers, providing them food and clothing. You shall also love the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. What does that mean for us to consider how we are going to engage in community with a world in perpetual crisis where there will be always vulnerable victims of those crises? What does that mean? Beethoven connected that sense of our unity with joy, that same joy and blessedness. When he used Schiller's Ode to Joy in his last symphony, there's a line that he offered. Joy's magic reunites those whom stern custom has parted. Joy, the joy of unity. And of course, our own John Muir is saying, when we try to pick out anything by itself, we find it hitched to everything else in the universe. Wow. What do we mean and what are we called to be about in this world in terms of creating community? My grandmother taught me that the toughest part of every task is simply beginning. The late African-American writer Zora Neale Hurston once wrote, sometimes I feel discriminated against. This is a woman writing in the 1920s. But it does not make me angry. It merely astonishes me. How can any deny themselves the pleasure of my company? It's beyond me. But then she says, no, I don't weep for the world. I'm too busy sharpening my oyster knife. I'm too busy sharpening my oyster knife because we find that oysters are pearls. As the powers of the world seek to trip us up in our cause, seek to divide us up, seek to break the community locally elsewhere, we have tools that we need to sharpen. And those are the tools of kindness, justice, and humility before our God. Let's take a moment to pray. Stay, O Lord, help us to figure out this community thing. Help us to work on it in our homes and in our relationships at work and in our relationships in neighborhoods. Heaven, help us with it in our own community here at Glen Avon as we seek to find our way into the future and be faithful as your people. Help us to do so as a nation, figuring out what it is to be a responsible member of this complicated world, but with all the wealth and gifts that we have to offer it. Lord, help us to humbly each day lift up that prayer, aspiring to be your people bearing kindness and justice and humility to the world. We ask it in Christ's name. Amen.